Welcome to the Bible Nation podcast. It's the middle of July, and we're back. We want to talk about Trumpageddon or Trump-palooza. Is this something good? Is it something bad? Should we be worried? Should we be praiseworthy? And there's so many messages out there. We thought we would just talk it through today, talk it out, and talk the good, the bad, and the ugly about what's going on in the news today. Welcome to the Bible Nation podcast. I'm Doug Levesque from the Bible Nation Society. With me today is Pastor Jason Georges from Emmanuel Baptist Church. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
You ready to go?
We're ready to go. 5 days out from the Trump assassination, just for those that are going to be watching this later on.
Excellent.
And so that's what we're talking about.
Excellent.
5 days out, Trump assassination attempt. Trump-a-palooza or Trump-mageddon?
There's people that saying he's the devil, and there's other people saying he's the boss. Like anybody that takes one to the head is now, chief man in charge, right? He's the thing. So are we at the dawn of a new grace for America, or a divinely appointed Trump comes to save the day? Or are we at the fall of America, a wickedly devised delusion of a Trumpian Eden complete with everyone eating the fruit? Pastor Jason likes to say, be careful about drinking the Kool-Aid, right? What are we standing up for? The ability, the freedom to do what's right as God defines that right.
God's the ultimate author of liberty.
We don't want government to stand between us and our freedom to do what is right.
Before we get to that, let's talk about other stuff that's going on in the news. There actually is a lot of stuff. It's just being blanketed by Mr. Trump. So the shot. As an American, that bothers me.
Yeah.
As an American, the Secret Service clearly have failed, no matter what conspiracy you're jumping on. And the key to a good conspiracy is that there's multiples, right? No matter what you're doing, they clearly failed.
More questions than answers.
And I hate, it's like 9/11.
Yeah.
Like there's questions that never get answered or whatever. Yeah. And so, the shooter always has three names. He's always deranged, right? In this case, he had his father's rifle, sort of thing. But he
AR-15 style. What's the style they keep saying?
But they were saying it was an AR-556. Now, an AR-15 is usually in 5.56 or 2.23.
Right.
And so they don't even know what they're talking about when they report that. Right. But the kid was bullied. His friends say he was a bullied kid, which is horrible. And that, with being, turned on or off by the internet.
Which I just heard an interview from his high school guidance counselor who says he wasn't bullied. The kid had a perfect attendance record in high school, like in his senior year.
Yeah.
Missed one day of school, which they say one of the marks of bully is they miss school. You're being bullied. So who knows?
Yeah.
And then you're going to get into the commercial he was in?
No, he was in the BlackRock commercial, which BlackRock is the epitome of an evil country trying to own the world.
Yeah, not the steak restaurant.
No, not the steak restaurant. It's connected with Soros. They're the ones that kind of have the primary compliance with the diversity, equity, inclusion demands on companies today, which is why we're seeing the media and companies all behave with this stuff. So it's a dark thing. I mean, is it CIA driven? Is it Soros driven? Who knows? But it's dark. So unfortunately, he's in that. And then our producer, Jackson over here, he said that one of the reports was that the buildings that he were on, the series of buildings, were owned by a derivative of BlackRock.
You can't write it better.
No, so, and then the bullets, there was multiple shooters, and blah, 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 blah.
Joe Rogan had a little clip on it. He's like, what does he say? We're living in the simulation.
Yeah.
Like, you can't write it any better than this. Like even if no one would even believe it in a Hollywood movie of all this. You said something about as an American.
Yeah.
And I think I share that sentiment with you. I don't think I know I do. Yeah. Because we lost something that day. And there was the prestige and the aura of the Secret Service.
Yeah.
This one last bureaucratic office in the American government bureaucracy that has just been so corrupt that there was this one last entity that was pure to its mission, save the body, regardless of its political affiliation, and that it was impervious.
Right.
That was like.
And the guys on the ground seemed to do a good job and might not have been involved, other than the fact that they were ordered to stand down when this guy was running around.
If there was an inside job conspiracy, which we're not saying there was, but we're not saying there wasn't.
Right.
Those are the guys that should be the most mad, because they were all things being equal, they were left to die.
Yeah.
Like they were, if it was an inside job,
Yeah.
and even if it was an inside job to the level of just highest ineptitude,
Yeah.
then they were hung out to dry with the intention that their lives were taken for granted, that one of you are going to die because we're going to shoot at the president, you're going to jump.
And, the Biden administration has to take responsibility. Mm-hmm. The head of the Secret Service has said the buck stops with me, but then you got to be investigated. Homeland Security is investigating them through the Department of Justice, FBI. But what about outside investigation or whatever? The political opposition in Ukraine, which is pro-Russia, has said it was Zelensky because Zelensky fears Trump's win and then they're going to lose or whatever. Other people have commissioned other ideas. Iran apparently had, threats out there, but Trump's people requested more Secret Service and they were denied. So he's got 20 people, which is probably good, but that's not a lot.
That's not enough.
No.
You don't have a drone asset. You don't have all these.
Yeah.
It's almost like a situation where the lights were purposely left off on the situation.
Yeah.
So you could do something.
Right.
Like we would normally have these assets.
Yeah.
But, the first lady was in the state. There was also someone else in the state. The vice president was in Pennsylvania.
Right.
We can't walk on slope roofs.
Right.
Have you heard this one?
Yes, I heard that.
Okay, and then they had a picture the next day of an FBI agent up on the top cleaning the slope roof.
Yeah.
I'm like, I guess it was.
Yeah, I guess
water.
it was possible.
I guess you can walk on a slope roof.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is. I'll tell you.
Very convenient that the shooter's dead and his head's blown off, so we can't. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Who is he?
Yeah.
5 days out.
Yeah.
I will tell you, there's probably. So you got the Trump boys now at the RNC. The RNC is going on right now, Republican National Convention. They're being interviewed.
Yeah.
Obviously everyone's saying the politically right thing. The guys that jumped on their dad, thank you, heroes. But there is now how did this happen? And then the questions are, do we have to have our own security?
Right.
And so now you're going to see that. Now, can you imagine?
You're opening the door to a private Trump
now,
army.
Can you imagine Trump surrounded by his own private security under this auspices? Now, these are guys that aren't government officials,
Right.
but, it just has too many.
And the same is,
it's all the bad parts.
Put your MAGA mask on.
Yeah.
Put your MAGA mask on if you're going to get near. It's just weird. One of Trump's first tweets that he put out after I'm okay was "Unite America."
Yeah.
And I was telling you in pre-production here that I remember the old Rapture movies from the 70s, Thief in the Night and all those kinds of things. And one of the things was in the tribulation, these governmental antichrist vans were going around, and they were playing off the UN, and the vans had on them "Unite." It was the Unite vans. So it wasn't just, these people are evil. It was, we're trying to unite. We're not trying to divide. Yeah. That was the word, right? Yeah. And so when he said "Unite America," I looked at my wife. We looked at each other because we'd both watched those movies when we were young and stuff. Like, what's going on? Was it not just the Bible? Was it Trump?
Yeah.
Was Trump making his own story, making his own magic?
Now, for the purity of what we just saw.
Yeah.
If everything is true to what we saw before our eyes.
Sure.
The dude did play himself a man that day.
Yeah.
I mean, if a bullet went by your head, and
you stood up with your fist,
and you stood up with your fist,
yeah.
I mean, that's come on, you couldn't. Who was Stephen A. Smith or someone else said he won the election?
Well, he won Pennsylvania for sure.
You can't pay for that political picture of a defiant, an assassination
I've seen
attempt.
T-shirts, memes, everything. Yeah.
Fist up, Secret Service agents around him.
Yeah.
Blood
Anything is possible.
You can't pay for that.
Yeah.
And so he did show himself a man. And I would say the nature of who he is. Mm-hmm. He is. We have to agree. He is a courageous man.
Sure.
Because to stand to
or bold.
Right, but in the face of that kind of adversity, that's your natural reaction.
Were someone else there to shoot you? Shooter was down. Were you getting brave, or were you trying to show yourself brave, or did you know that was it and that was over? So that's what I'm saying. The conspiracies come out, but that's going to dominate the news, for a while now. And I don't know that people should necessarily trust anything that's said, because you're going to get 100 different things said.
Right.
And they're going to contradict each other and build on each other and everything else. And I think you're going to have to just say, God, give me wisdom and discernment on what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, what should I believe, what should I not believe. And what you should believe is the Lord Jesus Christ. That's what you should believe. Yeah. And not get caught up with even reasons why. there's a person where I live that we talk all the time about, and he's an anti-Trumper, and I've never been a pro-Trumper, but we've always got along about stuff, and he just practically attacked me, just with rhetoric and anger, and all of a sudden it was we were always friends and kind and everything. All of a sudden he was just so anti, and I'm like, guy, I'm not a Trumpian, and like something changed. It just created division, and that's the thing. Even though Biden's weakness has created division, Trump has used rhetoric, divisive rhetoric, and so they're both responsible in that regard. Obviously, we're to pray for those in authority over us. We don't want anybody to be shot or assassinated or killed. But I'm going to read some scriptures, but Revelation 13 is not really one of them. But, Revelation 13:3 talks about the deadly head wound or whatever. So that, all of a sudden you got people saying, God protected him. He won. He's God's chosen man. You got other people saying, I don't know.
Right.
He could be the opposite. So we need to pay attention and probably, keep our ear to the ground on what's really going on and be wise about this and not just go for it. Second thing in the news is Paris Olympics. Paris Olympics. And, man, I always liked the Olympics growing up, watching it, the agony of defeat, right? The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat on whatever's going on. Paris is a great city. I've been there a couple times. And, the Seine is not known for its clean water. And so one of the things they've been working on for years is trying to clean up the city, crime, migrants, homelessness, really trying to work on that for the Olympics. And they've been trying to clean the Seine. And so there's been, there's only so much bleach you can pour into it to try to help it, to kill the E. coli. But man, the news now is the mayor is swimming in the Seine, and they got athletic events swimming in the Seine. And I don't know that I'd ever jump in the Seine, you know what I mean? But the Notre Dame is just about to be restored. So this is a big deal for France, for Paris, really for the world. And yet they're having their own terrorist issues. They're having their own political divisions. The election didn't just go left and right. It went sour. And so the prime minister resigned. It's a government more or less in custody. And Macron gets to stay in power. He said, I'm not stepping down. So he kind of gets to stay in power. Maybe it gives him more power. And so that's something to watch as well with differences, different elections all around the world, and then what's going on in Paris. I think that's something to watch. And then the Russian war endgame. What was their endgame? Their endgame was to conquer Ukraine and keep it, right? And counterbalance NATO. But the reality is their economy is flashing red. They are at the end. The Chinese and other sphere countries that had been propping them up with payments, that's all coming to an end. And so as soon as J.D. Vance, right after the shots were fired and J.D. Vance is nominated, what's his name? Lavrov, the foreign minister for Russia, he's Putin's lapdog, and he's come out and said, okay, we're ready to sit down for talks now, which, that's what Trump said. First day I get in 24 hours, we're going to make them sit down and talk. And Russia basically just said, yeah, we're ready for that. So either that means Trump's strong, or they trust Trump, or they fear Vance, or whatever. But it's funny that happens 24 hours after that goes. And so right now that's in the news that Russia's ready to hang their hat and call a truce and barter away land or whatever else. The pro-Russian political opposition of Zelensky in Ukraine came out and said, no, Zelensky shot Trump because they didn't want Trump to be in office. So that's more conspiracy theories we didn't even catch with that. But I think we should really watch now. I mean, we pray for peace. I mean, between the two countries, there's been 1 million men killed or maimed.
Yeah.
1 million. Yeah. And the mines that have been put out there, that mining's gonna be there for 20 years. And that's gonna be a hot spot, So this is a horrid thing that needs to stop, and hopefully political change can make it stop. But someone's gonna get the raw end of the deal on the
well, and what I've heard Trump talk about it is the art of the deal right now. And there was one reporter that was trying to hold him trying to get him to say, who are you for, Putin or Zelensky? And Trump wouldn't really go either way. And they're like, how can you not be against Putin? And Trump's point was, no, I'm just for stopping this war.
Yeah.
And if I pick a side right now, I won't be able to negotiate.
Right.
Like if I publicly come out here, how do I negotiate? So Trump is, which is just quintessential Trump, and he's always about the deal.
Yeah.
He's always about
he
the
loves
deal.
it.
Yeah. It's the deal that really motivates him. And so
Russia gets Donetsk and Luhansk. Ukraine gets Zaporizhia, and then Trump gets Crimea.
Yeah.
That's great resort golf land there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Trump, dude, what's the capital of Ukraine?
Kiev.
Kiev. Yeah, Kiev. If there's a Trump Tower in Kiev in a couple of years, okay, we know something's up.
Yeah, he's
or if there's one in Moscow.
He's playing it there. Well, we're talking Trump, and Trump, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I want to talk about the good stuff that is fair with Trump. I like the fact that Trump, more than any president, even Republican president, has really put NATO in check. And NATO's where it's at today with the possibility or opportunity to stop Russia. Because Trump said, you're going to pay your fair fare, we're going to pull out. So I think he's the one that shored NATO up. Not that he wants to get out of it. He's the one that made it stronger, actually, for whatever. But, I mean, to me, I've always been a pro-NATO situation. But, two, like, why we paying everything?
More pro-NATO than we are pro-UN.
Yeah.
We would be anti... Because it's,
two different organizations.
But two different organizations... Yeah. And their missions and their originations are two different things, and people need to have that little bit of understanding. UN is a globalist, lack of national identity organization,
right.
And NATO is a alliance amongst nations, against communism.
Absolutely, like it's you fight one bean, you fight the whole burrito here.
Right.
That's what it is, and that makes sense to me. He kept Russia in check. Russia had already taken the Crimea, and all those years, they did not. There was fighting going on in Luhansk and on the Donetsk border, but that was all through personal people that lived there, and there might have been private money going to Ukrainian fighters, and there might have been government money coming through Russia, but it was just a street fight. It was what it was, and Russia didn't make any moves during that time. So. China was kept in check. We were talking about semiconductors and the answer to that, and we did move start semiconductor plants in the United States, right? So that's a power hold, and I felt like he kept China in check and gave us a win by starting the revolution of building Taiwanese, Chinese superconductor chips here in the United States, and that was under him. I remember when he went to Saudi Arabia, Pastor Jay. You remember when he went and they were all dressed up and doing the sword dance, and he had a sword and he was doing the dance, and they were like, "We're going to love on Trump," and he kept the Saudis in check, and I think kind of gave them the open door to where they could join the Abraham Accords. Didn't happen right away, but he's the one that kind of who would have thought the MBS would come to power and they would be opening up to the West and even to Israel, and now they even want a military alliance with Israel, kind of a NATO of the Middle East sort of thing. And I feel like he's the one that initiated that through the Abraham Accords. Israel expanded, meaning he said that the Golan Heights is Israel's. And they've named towns for him up there, which is very biblical. The little horn, the little Trump sort of thing. And then he said, okay, Jerusalem's the capital. We're building our embassy there. And man, he did it. The Supreme Court, he put in balance or counterbalance to being leftist. It became leaning right, and they overturned Roe v. Wade. That seems to me a political miracle. You know what I mean? So it all went back to the states. We here in Michigan thought we had it made because we were a no abortion state, and of course, the very next election, we voted for pot and abortion and Gretchen Whitmer and our lesbian attorney general, all in the same fell swoop, and we lost everything, totally and completely. And that's some of our leadership's problem. Right. But what else? What do you think? Like, what other good things came about through, Trump's 4 years there? I mean, they seem tumultuous, but those were all the good things that I think, and most of those are foreign policy. But.
Yeah, and a resurgence of of America greatness.
Yeah.
People's attitude towards it.
Yeah.
So
American confidence has a lot
Yeah.
to do with our economy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I can remember right as I'm coming to I'm a young person. I'm talking about like elementary school age.
Yeah.
My grandfather talking about the difference between Carter and Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
And Carter, people were not proud of America.
Yeah.
Or weren't. And at Reagan gave everyone back that.
They hung their flag.
Yeah, they hung their flag, patriotism and whatnot.
And Trump did that.
And Trump's done that. Now, how that's been utilized
Mm-hmm.
or what that means, we can talk about. But we're pro-America. You know? And so America being great, and we talked about earlier Trump being about the art of the deal.
Yeah.
Well, if it is about the art of the deal and there is negotiation, I'd want the guy that's negotiating for us to put America first.
Yeah.
So
the America First agenda was not something we were against.
Yeah, no, that's at every negotiation table that should be the thing.
Yeah.
Like the world is best in the best place when America's interests are being met.
Yeah. And unlike some people like Obama or whatever, he would come out and hold up a Bible. You know what I'm saying? And kind of placate to Christian America or whatever. So rather than going against that trend, he actually was for that trend, right? We know the president's not always going to be a Christian or choir boy, but they need to placate. That's who they need to listen to. And I mean, we were going the other direction, bad.
Right.
And it seemed like there was a little more pride in America, and it seemed like there was a little more boisterousness with, we're for religious liberty.
Yeah, and the voices in for whatever Trump is or is not, there has been some comfort or approval in who he has surrounded himself with.
Right.
And there are more Christian, whatever stripe, voices around him
right.
than there are a Biden or
he
Obama.
picked a guy like Pence who everyone trusted, even if they weren't a Christian, because he was such a solid senator, governor, all those kinds of things. So, I mean, I didn't vote for Trump. I don't like Trump, but there's a lot of good things that the presidential office did during that time. And then I do feel like the election was marginalized and that he got, shortchanged and some of the weaponization of the DOJ and stuff like that started under Obama and with the Clintons, right? Because they did that in Arkansas and everything else. But that was the nature of where it went. He was a New Yorker. He was a Democrat 18 months before he declared to be a Republican. He gave money to the Clintons and da-da-da-da. So, not a Christian, not a moral man. His wife was, not only is there Stormy Daniels type of person, but his wife was a magazine video. I mean, I guess I would call it pornography. Mm-hmm. So it was a contractual relationship. So, I mean, it was none of those things, and yet he puts Pence in front and he holds up the Bible, and so evangelicals get excited. We're going to have America's going to be great again because of God. Mm-hmm. And he's willing to use that rhetoric, but he just, who's his God? Or is he God? Mm-hmm. Or is he just, it's transactional. Right. People have just described him as transactional.
And that's the annoying part with Trump.
Yeah.
It's like we want someone to uphold biblical principles.
Right.
We want someone that would respect what is right because God says it's right. But what you don't want is someone that would manipulate on the currency of God. Yeah. And that's God is God in the Bible is not a political token.
Right.
Chip that you put in the table. And that can kind of run against my sensibilities. Let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. So Trump 2016 Trump and Trump 2020, after 4 years in the presidency, did your opinion of him or perspective of him change? Or did he do better than you thought he was going to do in office on what we were afraid of going in as the political unknown?
Yeah, I didn't vote for him first time, second time. I mean, I'm probably not going to vote for him third time. Yeah. There's an independent named Terry Randall who's like the most absolute anti-abortion person on the planet, and he's there. So I mean, that's something I can vote for with a clear conscience. But I'm not even sure he's a Christian. You know what I mean? So everybody's using the God manipulation sort of thing. Right. So it's not like that Trump's alone in that. Biden's the same thing. So
and in the modern era, Karl Rove is the one that invented that.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely. So Bush Jr. says the most influential person in my life is Jesus Christ. He changed my life because I was a drunk. Mm-hmm. And he gave me my wife and da-da-da-da. And then he takes off his shoes and goes and prays in a mosque. Right. It's pretty much par for the course. And so, why expect more of Trump? But that's the problem. Mm-hmm. He placated evangelicals. Evangelicals started giving him love, which is what's always surrounded him, And So let's go to the bad then. The bad was, I think, COVID and its response. That happened on his watch. Well, maybe that was thrown against him as a weapon or thrown against America as a weapon, but you didn't respond. You ran through all the laws to give a sort of medicine and injection that went with their playbook, not ours, that shut down churches, that shut down religious liberty, that we felt completely. Some churches have never opened. Some churches have never recovered. Businesses have never recovered. People died. And then the response of masks and standing in line and, only going to the store to buy milk and you can't get paint because it's not a necessary whatever. This was like controls. And so to me, no, I don't. I didn't really have different. I was mad at all that, saying everybody's praising him, but all these negative things are happening that are totalitarian under his regime. Now, maybe he's not making the switches, but it's certainly hellish, and he wasn't doing it. The election manipulation. I mean, if you're the president when the election takes place and the election's manipulated, well, then sorry, dude, that's on you. Either through neglect or through the fact that you felt you could do the same thing afterwards. It seems like he was trying to call people and strong-arm people, or Pence will do this, or people will march on the Capitol, or whatever, and then kind of walk away from it was kind of a weak move. All the riots that were never dealt with, the COVID riots, I felt like that was just allowed, and that's that city's job. Because I don't think that he doesn't have a lot of political agenda except to be in power. Like I'm like, no, city can't do that. The federal government can step in, in a situation like that. And so, cities burned, people died. The same Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade basically made it national law for gay civil rights, like one right after the other. And so people are praising, oh, this is of God, this is of God, this is God. Well, then is this of God? Right. And so to me, that was a great evil because it's directly opposed to religious liberty. January 6th was a total fiasco. The DOJ attacks him, I think in an illegal and unjustified manner, and yet he does have all these points of attack. We know he likes to grab women. We know he thinks they love it. We know he says, I love women, right? I'm probably the greatest lover of women there ever was, and all this kind of stuff. But the reality is there's been dozens of these lawsuits, and it's not just from the left; it's from women on his behavior. And then all of his loyal posse, like they all go to jail. They're all serving terms, and he's not. And it doesn't seem.
They're hoping he gets elected.
You hope so. That's going to be paid back or whatever.
Pardon, yeah.
Yeah, and then the national division. It'd be easy to say, oh, the Democrats are creating a national division, but Trump and the GOP is as much as responsible for now. They're all talking about unite America, and we shouldn't do this, and they all said the right thing, and then boom, right back at it. Going through. So there's a lot of good, but the bad for me as an American, as a man, as a citizen, was just as much. And being involved in the GOP for 20, 25 years, I just came to realize that the GOP, their religion is win at any cost. Yeah. Righteousness is winning the election. That's Christian nationalism. Yeah. Christian nationalism. And so, I don't want to be part of that. Mm-hmm. And so I don't really have any choices other than to be just write your name in for the election. You know what I mean? As long as we say the lesser of two evils, or a vote for, a vote not for Trump is a vote for Biden, and that kind of mentality.
Well, he even on the abortion issue, he said in an interview prior to his assassination attempt, he said on his moderation of his stance on abortion is we have to win.
Right.
And that's not a principled viewpoint. Now, we get it. Run for president, we didn't win. Yeah. Because it's not the principled person, but the person who is more principled than pragmatic has to have a voice in this, or else we devolve to pure pragmatism.
And that's a good thing about, we can still post on the internet, we can still have our opinions, we can still talk about that kind of stuff.
And that's what, we're not anti-winning. We want to win, but we don't want to win at all. We don't want to win at, what's the point of winning if we've forsaken all the things that are sacred to us?
Yes.
I'd rather lose and yet be true to what's sacred and be right on that. Because in a big scheme of things, this election does not determine my eternity.
Right.
And so when you have a bigger perspective than just simply this next election
Yeah.
and the most important election of our lifetime,
Yeah.
and democracy in the balance, and all these different things, and even the democracy that they say that they're trying to preserve is a rarity and uniqueness in all of human history.
Right.
Very few people, of all the people that have lived on planet Earth,
Yeah.
have. And listen, I'm for fighting.
Yeah.
But I also don't define democracy or support democracy in the way they use that term.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I don't even want to get
Yeah.
into using that. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic.
More people
But-
that have our perspective and our vocabulary and our morality are on the right and have traditionally voted for Republican.
Right.
But they'll let us think that that's 80-90% of them, and I don't think it is anymore. I'm not sure it's 50% of them.
Victory is not Trump winning.
Yeah.
Victory is someone getting into the office and upholding what is right.
Yes.
That's what victory is.
That's what victory is.
That's what victory is.
Yeah.
And so that
If you mix those two things, you're going to get a twisted.
Yeah, and that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I'm fine. I want someone to get in office and do the right thing.
Yeah.
Not I want my team to win.
Yeah.
Because that's not what kind of victory is
Well,
that?
and so Trump proved himself that he did some right things,
yeah.
but he also proved himself he did some wrong things. So it was a mixed bag. Biden has proved himself in being so weak that everybody's doing what they want.
And you talked about drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
We have drunk the Kool-Aid when we're not willing to not only say good, but bad.
Right.
If all we can say is good, and then even on our side are like, and don't you dare say anything about the bad,
Yeah.
then you drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
You drink the Kool-Aid. Who is above criticism?
Right.
Who is above scrutiny?
Yeah.
And especially a politician. Our political
Yeah.
system is designed
Yeah.
that they are to be scrutinized in order to keep them where they ought to be.
Yeah.
And so if we at the cost of winning silence our own criticism, then we're not served. We're actually
Right.
we're not even if for whatever he is, we're actually not serving the president very well by not criticizing what is worthy of being criticized.
Yeah, and then if he hears that, then if he wants to win, he adjusts.
Yes,
So in the
yes.
past, he was placating to evangelicals, but this time around, he's placating to diversity.
Yep.
Because we've already seen Hindu prayers, we've seen a porn star, Satanist, come up and talk. We've seen Catholic prayers. J.D. Vance is a Jesuit Christian. He's a Jesuit Catholic, which is not a Christian.
Yeah.
So he can say that. I count myself that. Yeah. And he can look and talk like South Ohio church-going Christian or whatever else. But man, his wedding pictures are of a Hindu wedding. And his evangelical departure is very well documented. So it looks good and sounds good, but it is not biblical Christianity. At least with Pence, we drank the Kool-Aid with that. But
He had a pedigree.
well, he had a pedigree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of
And ultimately he sided with his position, not overturning the Constitution. He might have not liked it. He might have wanted to go, but he didn't make that jump. And so, we just have to be careful about that. And I think I'm not willing to say Trump is the Antichrist, but for 20 years, and especially the life of Bible Nation Societies, we've always done podcasts that what is the Antichrist? Who's the Antichrist? Is he alive today? What kind of person would it be? And looking at all these different powerful world leaders, business leaders, whatever. And we've talked about Trump, from 2016 and through and what we call the Antichrist quotient. In other words, if there was a machine and you put the Bible verses in and you put that person and his character in there, who scores high? Maybe I'm a 10, you're a 9, right? We don't really score high on the Antichrist quotient.
I'm glad you put yourself higher.
I did because I know I'm not that good. I know I'm not that good. So
I was about to be offended.
I started with 10 and you thought I was
Yeah, I
going
know. I
11.
was like, dude, you gave me a 9. You gave me a 9 at first, and I was like, well, he didn't leave himself much room.
Well,
here.
we would definitely say Nero, Pharaoh, Alexander the Great.
It's a 0 to 100 scale.
Yeah, and so Nebuchadnezzar, we would say those guys were 99s. Right, as far as being
Right,
Antichrist,
it's a 0 to 100
kill the
scale.
truth, and they fit the frame of Scripture and stuff. And the devil's always going to have some personage ready to go because he doesn't know all things. But we feel like we're in the last days, and the timings are getting close. And so then the geopolitics looks similar, and then the spirit of the age, looks similar. And so then we look at these persons and personalities. Who is the most singular, influential, powerful human being on the face of the planet that has the ability to twist and turn things? President of the United States. And particularly one who's pseudo-religious. Or who's very religious or who's messianic and deluded. You know, Judas didn't know necessarily that he was going to be possessed till he was. And so I'm not saying that Trump's nefariously acting as the devil Antichrist right now, but there's a lot of scriptures. I put a bit down here. We don't really have time to go through them all, but you can go on the internet and just Google is Trump Antichrist. There's a website by, I think, a guy I don't agree with on his rapture issue, but he just very quietly, he's not angry or anything, but he very quietly lists verses and says, compare this to Xi in China, compare this to Putin, compare this to other possible, things. And he puts Trump out there. In fact, he calls it Antichrist 45, as though Trump was the 45th president. And he's talking about it today with the head wound, with the blood on the right ear. There's scriptures about the Aaronic priesthood was ordained into priesthood with blood on the right ear.
Yep.
So, Christians are saying, oh, he's the high priest.
Yeah.
Rather than looking at it and saying, well, he's the pseudo-Messiah.
Right.
So you got Christians, good, Bible Christians that are on both sides,
right,
of the issue, and some just in the middle that are just oblivious.
Well, and Jesus warns, Antichrist will deceive the very elect.
Delusion.
Right.
God's going to send delusion.
Matthew 24:24.
Yeah. So
It
some people
the
even
very
that
elect.
say they believe in a rapture the way we believe in a rapture,
Yeah.
they're like, no one can know. And so they say they believe it, but they really don't believe it because they're not really looking.
Right.
They're not really loving or longing. They're just like, ah. And that's kind of the mentality even of rapture people sometimes.
Right.
And, there are a few that are like, it's today. No, it's today. No, it's today. There's a few people like that, and that's easily, reckoned. And the same thing with who's the Antichrist. But the AC, Antichrist quotient, I think becomes high. And this brother Paul from Antichrist 45, I think does a good job at presenting his case. Now, he says Trump's the Antichrist. I'm not only saying Trump's the Antichrist and don't vote for him. I'm just saying I'm not going to vote for him because I don't feel comfortable with him as a man, as a Christian, as an American. He did good, he did bad, but there's some ugly spiritual delusion here. I got to blame pastors and churches. I think they're responsible. I think Trump encourages messianic overtones. I think that's where that's the point that he receives worship.
Yeah.
That's the point to me. That's the one that I say, I don't like him, whether he's the Antichrist or not, because he's too much that way.
Yeah, isn't it funny?
Yeah.
Funny what everyone this post-assassination.
Yeah.
Here we are Thursday. I think he addresses the DNC tonight.
Yeah.
Or the RNC tonight. And what's the world on bated breath for? He hasn't spoken publicly.
No.
Yet. But what are they on? Is he going to come out with humility?
Oh yeah, he's
that's
changed.
Yeah.
He's been baptized in his own blood.
Right. That's kind of what the sense is. Is he going to come out with some humility? No, listen. If you almost get shot, you ought to have some humility.
Yeah.
You
better.
You ought, because you ought not have that sense of invincibility.
If he came out tonight and said, folks, I just want you to know, I've played it. I thought I was this and this. I just want you to know, I got on my knees and I asked Jesus to save me.
Yeah.
Not just my physical life, but my spiritual life. Praise God. So we've been praying for it.
Yeah.
So, if you want to convince me, you got to do that. The guy has never said that he needed to pray and ask for forgiveness. He's never said that Jesus Christ is the Messiah and the Lord. He's never said his or thee. And so he can say everything but. J.D. Vance is the same way. So I'm interested. So let's kind of bring this up to a close. I encourage people to go look at the scriptures themselves for an Antichrist quotient with any powerful human being that's receiving worship, especially in these last days with the timings. I believe there's an Antichrist. The spirit of Antichrist is here, and there's one in the wings, right? So my application is this: there's some reason to have some hesitation regarding Trump's greatness. That would be, I said Trumpalooza or Trump apocalypse. And I would say definitely there's some reason to have some hesitation. Put your foot on the brakes here, folks. Don't go nuts. We're going to win. We're going to beat Biden. Well, and then you elect the devil? So just put your foot on the brakes. There's enough here that we've talked about that we as sensible human beings are saying be careful about. Secondly, evangelicals are part of the problem. I would tell evangelical brethren, what are you doing? I would tell people, just because these 42 evangelicals are there, that doesn't mean they're right. They want to be close to power. This Christian nationalist power play that they want. In some regards, I agree with restoration of constitutional organization, but in other ways, I don't agree on demanding a certain kind of faith with government.
Right.
To me, that's evil.
That's not what we mean by Bible Nation.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and a real pause on that with the idea of evangelicals and whatnot, and just give everyone some aware. We've been in the circles. You noted it about the RNC so far. Just know that on the national level, at the Republican Party level, when they are talking Christian, that version of Christianity is dominated by Catholicism and charismatics.
Yes.
So that's what's defining that.
And I would say even the Heritage Foundation's document they're talking about is it pushes what I call kingdom dominion theory. In other words, politics is our religion. We're going to bring in the kingdom of God through political power.
Right.
Which fits the white horse.
Right. And we're not looking for the Republican Party to be, independent landmark Baptists.
Right.
Right. But what we're saying is just know that's the flavor that's being presented there. That's the overtones. That's who's dominating those voices. And
even the guys that are close to us that say they're Baptist or biblical or whatever, when you really start talking to them, they're not rapturous. They're kingdom dominionists.
Yeah. Well, they've bought that. They've
bought it and they're in it.
They've played down that.
Yes.
They're unwilling accomplices.
And so these guys really believe this is God at work and God's doing this and that's kind of why that mindset is there. And the other thing that bothers me is that the Catholic presence isn't just a Catholic presence. It's a Jesuit presence. The Pope is Jesuit. J.D. Vance is Jesuit. And the Jesuits, when you look just through history, they're the Illuminati, man. They're wicked. They'll kill. They'll do whatever.
And as Baptists, that ought to be like our Baptist forefathers of 300-400 years ago would be like, that's the dark side.
I would naturally say
those are the Sith.
99% of what a Jesuit would bring forth, I would say no. Right. So people say, oh, and he put J.D. Vance in there. I'll talk about J.D. Vance, but J.D. Vance is a Jesuit. Maybe J.D. Vance says, I won't miss next time. You make me vice president. I mean, come on. And I'm not saying that's it. I'm just saying that the Jesuit presence, I think, has never been as strong as it is right now in our country and near the presidency right now. And that means Rome would have inordinate say and power in what's going on in America. Thirdly, I would say, as far as voting, do vote. You're a citizen. Vote. Don't worship. Vote is not worship, and don't let it be. Vote. Your vote belongs to God, so give it to God. When you go in there, say, God, my vote is yours. I'm going to vote according to the scriptures and spiritual conscience and the Holy Spirit. Help me. And then I would say, more poignantly, vote life, marriage, and liberty, religious liberty. Vote those things as best you possibly can, or write your wife's name in there.
And I would say pretty much in that order.
Yeah.
That's a good order of priority.
And that's why I said this, Terry,
marriage and liberty.
The Constitution Party.
Marriage and liberty are almost synonymous as two sides of the same issue.
The Constitution Party, which I've been a part of a long time, has always been very Christian. Now it's fragmenting, and this Terry Randall isn't necessarily, super born again, okay? But he is the most, and has been radically against abortion since I've been in high school. This guy's been around as the most radical anti-abortionist. He might be Catholic. But he's like, we're going to end this thing completely. We're going to be and he says that's why I'm running, is to bring pressure upon this issue. I mean, he knows he's probably not going to win, but that's exactly what he's
we ought to support that part of the democratic process.
Well, I mean, if a Democrat came out and said, I'm not for a military, but I'm against abortion, I might vote for him.
There is a place for someone to run just to have their issue put into the conversation.
Yes, it's part of the political process.
That's part of the process.
Yes.
Which, little side note here as well, we're about to see, Biden is getting railroaded out.
Yeah, he is.
Which he has all the Democratic votes.
Right.
So they're gonna supersede, or they're gonna discount the will of the voters.
Right.
And then they're about to get a candidate of appointment.
Yeah.
I mean, that needs to be the next podcast.
Yeah.
Because that's weird also.
It is.
That is weird also.
That's very strong. And what if the Democratic Party comes out and says, we choose Trump? Then you don't have an election.
Okay. What you just said almost made my brain pull out there.
No, I've always said Trump's using the evangelicals, but he'll just as much turn around and use whoever else he needs to.
Listen, I am not making light of anything we've talked about here. But if the DNC comes out for the good of America, and we're going to endorse Trump. He is the Antichrist.
Right.
He is the Antichrist.
And the feast day counts work.
Okay.
Because we don't need an election.
I call it right now. Put this on wax. What's today? July 17th.
Yeah.
If the DNC comes out and endorses Trump as president because they say it's for the good of America, he is the Antichrist.
Yeah, I'm telling you. And that happens on the same day that the red heifer is sacrificed. Then, folks, listen, I got some swampland for you, man.
No.
To tell you. So, last thing is this: are we in the last days? Are we near Daniel's 70th week of time? Is the rapture imminent? If so, how do we ready ourselves? How do we become watchers?
Yeah.
And the answer then, because people are really bothered by this, and I would say this: I'm bothered by it too, but this is actually enabling and strengthening my hope.
Yeah.
The blessed hope. And what I've been telling everyone, and what I've been practicing myself, is more practical holiness, more mindfulness of do right, get clean and right. I'm going to meet my King, right? What's wrong with that? Nothing. And the second thing is real personal evangelism. And I've been a pastor my whole adult life. I've always cared about souls and told people about Christ and gone out of my way to do that. But it's like I'm super heightened on it because I'm like, that person who's a total jerk who I don't like is about to encounter something I would not wish upon anybody. And so I have been going out of my way to befriend, to talk Jesus, to love my enemy, and all those kinds of things.
Person.
To be a nicer person.
You heard it here.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next podcast is going to be on being a nicer person. All right. Some of you are laughing right now.
Jackson, your youngest son, who's our producer, is like, a little too late. I moved out of the house already.
That's true. It's true. Personally,
Yeah, talking about the rapture. I took a phone call right before the podcast started, and it was from an individual who connects with us online and everything, and they were just really concerned, in their own words, fearful for America and what's going on, and Pastor, what are we supposed to do? How do we, and we understand through this biblical lens. I liken it to. The cork, the drain has been opened in the tub. Yeah. And the water's draining out. Yeah. And so we see it. We see the circulation, the revolutions of that going. And so the world is on a course towards the return of Christ. It's inevitable. Yes. And it's such a historical gravity. Right. Now, in our reality, it's a future reality. Yeah. It hasn't happened yet, right? Yep. But it's of such consequence that it is literally shaping the momentum of the world. It is changing our orbit. It affects our orbit. The Earth supposedly orbits the sun, right? Because of the gravity of the sun. And so here is this future event, because the farther we get away from the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, which is the quintessential event, right? That's the thing that everything revolves around, even eternity future. Right. The return of Christ then maybe could be, it's like the moon. It's another orbit that is checking that. And everything's draining that way. Yeah. And so rumors of war, check. Yeah. Israel, famine, and natural phenomena.
Israel's 75 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. Natural occurrences of, these natural phenomena.
Frequency, intensity, visibility, birth pains.
Yes,
birth
all of
pains.
It. Yeah. So what should a believer do today? We should not be ignorant of this. And we
not be apathetic.
Yeah. So it's like, I have the Weather Channel premium app on my phone, and it gives me 10-day forecast by the hour. Yeah. And so we're able to project. It's not always right, but it gives me an idea. Yeah. It gives me an idea.
And that's what we're being watchmen on the wall by saying, folks, just don't drink the Kool-Aid. There's something here that is both prophetic, providential, and should be a hope for us and a motivator for us. Yes. And so we're just sharing that. And, people might think whatever they want to think, and that's okay because, we're not infallible.
And there's only one person who is worthy of your undying devotion, unquestioned devotion. Yes. And that's Jesus.
It's Jesus.
That's it. And so our only pushback, we've given you, on this podcast, we share some of our personal opinion. Yeah. You even said this is who I'm going to personally vote for and not vote for. Yeah. But what is it that we're counseling people? Yeah. Is we're saying, just don't turn off, don't give anybody undying devotion, unquestionable devotion.
Right. If someone votes for Trump, I'm not saying he's the Antichrist.
Right.
So I'm like, that's your vote. You vote for that, and then vote for it because of the right side of things.
Yes.
That he's on.
Yes.
But when you go in and your vote is equated to worship and hope and all these different things, which it's been being built up, to that. Right. Then you're setting yourself up for delusion. Yeah. And if you don't believe in rapture, do. And the main way to be ready for the rapture is be saved. Trust in the Lord Jesus Christ and be saved, and then have that hope that will keep you motivated to do what's right. Listen, we'll be talking more about this in our next couple of podcasts, I'm sure, as we watch things develop. But one of the things that heightens this over the last 2,000 years is that Israel has returned to the land. 75 years old. They're in a existential war right now that we're talking nuclear. And France's election, Russia's behavior, the United States election, and all the personalities involved really are connected to me to Jerusalem. And Trump's the one that put his name there. I will do the one verse, John 5:43. Jesus said, I've come in my name and you've rejected me, but someone's going to come in his own name and you're going to receive him. And it's just interesting that then that's playing out with personalities. And they might not even be in control of that, because the devil's not omniscient. He's not all-powerful, any of those things, but he knows human behavior. He knows how to manipulate the geopolitics. Bible says he's a dragon that deceives the nations, right? He's had 2,000 years to play the game. I think he's been thwarted because God's in control of the timing. But God said there would be feast day appointments and there would be day counts that had to fit between those appointments. And we've actually put that together for you. There's a podcast there for you to go and look at. And so that matrix is real and will be fulfilled purposely sometime in the future. And with all this other stuff going around, it's making a lot of people afraid. And that's why we do. Is it Trump apocalypse? Should we be afraid? Or is it Trumpalooza? Should we be that? Well, there's a third option, and that is trust the Lord Jesus Christ and be ready and do right and have hope and watch and say, man, the Bible is true. Things are happening. And it might happen today. It might happen 10 years from now. Who knows? But people that are just going with options that they're given, are probably not going to be happy.
and not questioning those options.
Yeah.
And not looking at them objectively. So, that's what we want. And that's, we talk about unquestioned loyalty. That's what salvation is.
Right.
Is I'm trusting Jesus to the level of I don't question him anymore.
Yeah.
I take him as who he is.
Yeah.
And who he says he is. And I'm trusting that. And that's what it means to be saved. Hey, we got some books that we've been talking about.
Yep, we got a new book out, Christian Citizenship. We did a podcast on this, and it's very balanced, and it talks about not only our founding fathers, founding documents, but also what Christian citizenship, what's required of us. The Declaration of Independence was really basically the biblical philosophy of government. The Bible has a biblical doctrine of government, and that was played out in partially, at least, in the Declaration of Independence. And the Constitution, we kind of hold sacred because we believe it's the practical, pragmatic end of that. Not perfectly, but it's served us well, and so we're proud of that. So this tells you how to run for office, how to vote, etc. And Dr. Byron Fox, Dr. Phil Stringer did a wonderful job. This is a great book. You can go on our website. You can get this book. We encourage you to get it and share it with everybody, because there's 3 months before the election. And so get this book and participate in good Christian citizenship. The other one, and this is my favorite magnum opus, Surviving This Babylon, Ancient Secrets for Modern Survival. Daniel in the Lion's Den, he showed us how to live in Babylon, how to survive in Babylon, how to thrive and win in Babylon. And he was delivered. He was raptured, if you will, out of the lion's den when everybody else went in. And so, beloved, this really tells you pragmatically at least 5 steps that you can do in your own behavior and practice of life. And so we encourage you to get Surviving This Babylon. You can go to Amazon and get this. This is on audiobook as well. And so we encourage you to get these materials to help you have hope and stay strong. Thank you for listening to and supporting the Bible Nation Society. We appreciate you. And thanks for listening to the Bible Nation podcast. Remember, the best culture is a Bible culture. It's proven and it works. Hi, this is Doug Levesque. Thanks for watching the Bible Nation podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Go to our website, BibleNation.org, to check out all of our offerings. Thanks again for watching.